The final candidates that we meet in this forum are running for Spokane County Sheriff. They are Ozzie Knezevich and Doug Orr. You each will have 1.5 minutes for your opening statement. Mr. Knezevich.
First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this event. I think it's an important aspect of our community to learn who is running for office. It's been an honor to represent the citizens of Spokane County for the last 8 years as your elected sheriff. Over that last 8 years, we have accomplished many things. One of the things I am most proud of is that we currently enjoy one of the lowest violent crime rates in 20 years. Since 2007, violent crime in Spokane County jurisdictions have gone down 43%. We've heard property crimes are an issue, but when you take a look at the hard data, property crimes are also down 7% from 2004. We brought Crime Check back. Crime Check is one of those drivers that influence our ability to solve crime and our ability to report crime. We have one of the most robust crime reporting systems in the state of Washington, and that is what partially inflates some of our property crimes numbers, but it is a valuable tool. Smart justice is another aspect that is talked about. It's an honor to be part of that discussion because I was part of the leadership that brought smart justice into Spokane County. Mark Richard and I hired a consultant by the name of David Bennett, and he brought those principles here to Spokane County, and we are about to watch that process continue to unfold and continue to build those programs.
Thank you. Mr. Orr.
Thank you. Charles Kettering, the inventor of the electric starter, once said, "My interest is in the future because I'm going to spend the rest of my life there." Well, I'm here to talk about the future of Spokane County, and it's a future of effective leadership, and I think I've built that effective leader. I have nearly 30 years of experience in law enforcement with a unique and unequaled track record of achievement, self-reliance, and ambition. I have a master's degree in organizational leadership. I have an MBA in human resource. I have a PhD in criminal justice. I've been appointed to the International Law Enforcement Academy by the U.S. State Department to lead leaders from across the world. Now, in the past, law enforcement leaders have come to work in hoping that today is the same as it was yesterday so they can retire tomorrow. And to me, that's an empty and selfish legacy. No, I live in a future where we stop warehousing people and get into the business of changing people's thinking without raising taxes. I live in a future where our county has lower property crime rates than other counties our size. I live in a future that's prized in the ability to have civilian oversight by community members and deputies. And the sheriff of this future is articulate, sophisticated, objective, and with a good measure of common sense, all for a job that requires the deepest sense of humility. Now that's a legacy for the future, and that's the future we're going to have when I'm elected sheriff.
Okay, thank you. So let's get a little bit more specific in terms for both of you. Are there changes in the next cycle that you each would suggest for this particular office? And we'll begin with you, Mr. Orr.
First of all, there's going to be two. I'm going to work on morale within the department, and then we'll talk about civilian oversight. And I think we're going to probably talk about that a little bit later, so I'll save that. 4 things in that package of morale. Atmosphere. I'm going to be about that transformational leader, someone who comes to work for the employee. I'm also going to deliver an atmosphere of expectation. I'm going to explore with the union a discipline matrix where we not only have policy, but we also have a sanction built into the policy, so there's a level of expectation when they come to work. Also some retention. I'm going to talk about career paths, so the deputies have a horizontal career path if they want to stay a deputy or a corporal, or if they want to be a leader, they have an administrative career path. And a citizens review panel to move forward to the application process to oversee that, where they can actually have some input into who's being hired. My experience from back east was that the police department did the internal review, but citizens review decided whether or not they wanted me to represent their community.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Knezevich?
We will continue to build one of the most professional law enforcement agencies in the state of Washington. The Spokane County Sheriff's Office is known as one of the leading training agencies in the state of Washington. We have trained over 18,000 law enforcement officers over the last 6 years right here in Spokane County. That has saved you $3.5 million in revenue and brought in $4.5 million in economic development and impact. We have many issues that we need to work on, and part of that is standards. That is why I have sponsored 2 times in the last 2 years legislation that simply states law enforcement officers should not commit crimes on duty, nor should they lie. I think that standards and high values are a must if you're going to have a professional law enforcement agency.
All right, so we will move into this topic of civilian oversight. And in asking that question, is there adequate oversight and review of police officers on use of force? And what are your thoughts of establishing a county ombudsman program to provide that law enforcement, such as the city has established? Mr. Knezovich, 1 minute.
I don't oppose a county ombudsman. As a matter of fact, I have used the city ombudsman on many of our use of force investigations. We also have a citizen advisory board that reviews use of force situations, disciplinary actions. So we do have a robust measurement of how we are going to look at bringing and ensuring that the quality of the work and the work product is within standards in Spokane County. I really think that the ombudsman piece is one of those parts that the city and county should probably team up with and create a city-county ombudsman in order to save taxpayer revenue and money. Again, I have used the city ombudsman multiple times. I think he's a highly qualified individual, and it has added value to the investigations that we have had in reference to officer-involved shootings.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Orr.
The hallmark of a mature police agency is one that can be answerable. And I don't use the word transparency because I think we've beaten it up too much and it doesn't mean anything anymore. But to be answerable, the ability to say, I'm sorry, but also ask for forgiveness. And when I spoke to the Deputies Sheriff's Association, I said to them, we will have civilian oversight in my 4 years. I will lead you through it. It'll be something we can all accept, and it won't distract us from the good work that we're going to be doing. So in the first part, it will come as probably an ombudsman in the form of an ordinance in front of the county commissioners. For the second part, we will have that citizens review pushed to the forward of the process to oversee the application process. I'm a firm believer that if the police are having to investigate the police, it has something to do with the police hiring the police.
Okay. Thank you. Do either of you want to say anything more on this? Mr. Knezovich, 30 seconds.
I would. When it comes down to the hiring processes, you'll find that the Spokane County Sheriff's Office has one of the most robust hiring processes there is in the state. We send investigators out actually to the home states or towns to find out who is applying for us. And I really believe that if you want to hire, you make sure you have a good agency, you hire the best and qualified people. When it comes down to oversight, oversight's one thing, but being able to hold people accountable is more important.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Orr.
I would say that 46 deputies are, well, probably over 40 are currently eligible to retire. Another 90 in another 5 years will be eligible to retire. So the application process is going to become critical in the next few years. Okay,
thank you. Let's move and talk a little bit about smart justice. We've addressed it a little bit in this forum, and you have addressed it as well. For the Sheriff's Department, what are the next steps in implementing that piece, and how do you see yourself being part of that? And we begin with you, Mr. Orr.
Two parts. I believe what's critical to us right now is to go forward with that triage concept that people have been talking about, where officers in the field have a great deal more discretion on where to take the mentally ill. If there was a triage center available to them, certainly that would be the best option. The other part is also important, and we know good policy is always rooted in good research, and it's supported by training, and it's also reinforced by accountability mechanism. So that second part is going to be crisis intervention training. All the deputies will go through it. We will find time and resources to do it. Bonner County has 170 sworn, and they were able to get theirs through. So that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, Mr. Knezovich.
When it comes to smart justice, some of the biggest challenges are finding money to actually support the programs. We have many programs at Geiger and the Spokane County Jail, and the reason we have them is because of volunteers and citizen activists like Judith Gilmore, who went around this community with me to get volunteers in our community to give people jobs when they get out of Geiger after completing the programming. Over 300 businesses now take a risk of hiring people that come out of the Geiger in order to break that cycle of lack of education, lack of job, lack of housing. Mental health. The Spokane County Jail is the only jail in the state of Washington certified to handle mental health issues. That was accomplished under my leadership. Why? Because mental illness is not a place to be dealt with in jail. It's better to be dealt with outside the jail. So we opened up safety nets where people could be transitioned into more stable mental health care.
Okay, so we're going to continue on that theme because that was the next question on dealing with the mentally ill. And so we'll go for the question itself is, what are your suggestions for better handling of these mentally ill prisoners? And so we'll do 1 minute. Mr. Knezevich first.
The mental health issue, when you talk about triage, we have that triage, and we've had that triage for many years. I'm currently on the Frontier Board, which used to be Spokane Mental Health. And when we talk about training, what we need to realize also is Spokane County City led the nation when it came down to excited delirium training. We actually developed protocols, we developed that training, and CIT training is only one aspect of mental health training that is necessary to deal with those things out on the street. In order for us to deal with this situation properly, we're going to have funding from the state. The state of Washington has backed away from this issue and dropped it into the laps of the locals. So with proper development of programming and proper development of training to deal with the situation on the street, Spokane has always led the way in this area.
Okay, Mr. Orr.
I don't want to duplicate what I said in the last question, but with CIT training, I think that's going to be premier. I mean, we have to do that. And as the sheriff pointed out, that cost will be a factor. However, I think an important part here is labor and being able to negotiate through these matters and making way for shift changes and things like that. And I think one of the strengths that I have right now is a working relationship with the Deputy Sheriff's Association. I've been endorsed by them, so at least they're very receptive to what I have to say.
All right, we've had a lot of, in this community, we've heard a lot about alternate programs to incarceration, and we have a number of different courts that are working well. Are there some things from your perspective that would work better in terms of diversion and treatment programs? Are there other programs that could be included? And we'll start with Mr. Orr, 1 minute.
I think what's critical right now is an effective screening tool for those programs. Right now, I don't know that there's a tool in place that can decide who is amenable to treatment and who is not, because that's the ultimate goal. I think one of the prosecutors mentioned it, is public safety and people feeling safe. So jail is for people who are going to hurt us, and they should be there. For those who are amenable to treatment, there needs to be a good screening tool.
Okay, Mr. Knezevich.
That screening tool has existed for 4 years within this community because we adopted it from the state of Washington. So we have a very robust screening tool. Perhaps Mr. Orr didn't realize that. One of the things that in order for us to be more effective is you have to fix the core problems that keep people returning to jail. Drug and alcohol abuse, housing, employment, and education. Those are the drivers, and if you want to have an impact, you have to teach people how to get a job, how to fill out the resumes and applications, get them employed, get them better education, and get them stable housing. Those are the programs that we really need to develop within our community, and those are the programs that I am currently working with people like Judith Gilmore, Happy Watkins, actually Mr. Biggs, we're all working towards these type of programs in order to short-circuit the trip to jail, because our goal is to get people in these programs before they actually start offending.
Thank you. All right, moving into a little bit more and working with your staff, when there seems to be a need for firing a deputy, is the current protocol adequate? Can you please explain why or why not? And we'll start with Mr. Knezovich.
The current protocol as far as termination of a deputy follows state law, collective bargaining law and civil service laws. The real glitch in the system is that when we go to arbitration, arbitrators make arbitrary decisions. And that is why I and every sheriff in the state of Washington in 2013 tried to pass a law that simply said law enforcement officers should not commit crimes on duty, nor should they lie. The reason we did that was to develop a matrix to say there are certain things that if you do these things, you will no longer be employed as a law enforcement officer. Following civil service law, following collective bargaining is the easy part. It really comes down to truly arbitrary decisions by arbitrators. When you can have a corrections deputy make a mentally ill, suicidal inmate do jumping jacks as a joke and they can get their job back, you have a problem with the system. So it really has little to do with the system itself. It comes down to the end game.
Thank you. Mr. Orr.
We do have a law in the state of Washington. It was passed in 2009, and it says that police officers should not lie. They should not commit crimes on duty. The process right now with binding arbitration is just that it's binding arbitration. That if there's an impasse, both parties go before a neutral, objective third party. That neutral, objective third party hears testimony from the sheriff and from the grievant, or from the terminated officer or the aggrieved officer. That process just has to be followed. So you just have to follow the law.
So the begs question, is there a need to change the law? Mr. Orr,
Not currently. Other
Okay.
chiefs of police and sheriffs don't seem to be having a problem with it.
Okay, Mr. Knezovich?
I would disagree with Mr. Orr on that. Every chief and sheriff in the state wouldn't have supported that law change. The law that Mr. Orr talks about was not a law that says you have to tell the truth or not commit crimes on duty. It was a law that simply said you have to follow your policies and procedures. He has misrepresented the law in totality.
Okay, thank you. Now, for a quick one here, to follow up a little bit here, if an arbiter is needed, does that person have training in law enforcement issues, or are they just an arbitration process in general? Are there problems with that process? You've alleged some of that, so let's do 30 more seconds on this. Mr. Knezovich.
There is an inherent problem with the arbitration system. I had a labor attorney this week call me from Seattle and wanted to read the latest arbitration. She did, and she said, "I can't believe it, Sheriff. I can't believe the arbitrator actually made the ruling that they did." It's not about following the law, as Mr. Orr would have everybody believe, because if you read the arbitration decisions, all the arbitrators say the sheriff and the sheriff's office did it right. It really comes down to the arbitrators not having their specific training to deal with the fact that law enforcement is different than other jobs.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Orr.
All of my career, I've been told, don't give in to emotion, don't give in to your personal feelings. You have to follow the law. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter the way you think. You follow the law. And I don't understand why people are so surprised when these people ask to just follow the law. We need to follow the law.
Okay, thank you. We are going to go to your closing statements. You will each have 30 seconds. We will start with Mr. Knezovich.
Again, thank you to the League for putting this on, and it's been a pleasure representing this county for the last 8 years as your elected sheriff. Folks, I have led in leadership positions my entire career, from the time I served in the military, most of my career in law enforcement. My opponent has never led anything. He's never risen above the rank of corporal. It comes down to leadership and standards. If you want to have quality law enforcement, you have to have high standards and you have to have proven leadership, and that's what I bring to the table.
Thank you. Mr. Orr.
As you know, the Spokane County Deputy Sheriff's Association has endorsed me. And when I met with them, I told them that we would do justice and that we'd walk humbly. We wouldn't forget who we're working with and who we're working for. And that's my solemn commitment to you tonight. Our future depends on it.
Thank you, and thank you to the candidates for Spokane County Sheriff. They are again Ozzie Knezevich and Doug Orr. Also on our Spokane County ballot will be the office of County Clerk. There is a single candidate, Tim Fitzgerald, and he will appear on the primary ballot. This concludes the Spokane County Forum for the primary election. A separate forum features candidates running for Congressional District 5 and Legislative Districts 3, 4, and 6. The League will host a general election forum in September for the top 2 finishers in all of these races. In case you joined us after the program began, here's a reminder about voting in the primary. Ballots must be mailed or deposited in ballot boxes in convenient community locations by August 5th, or can be dropped off at one of the voter service centers on August 5th. Voters no longer need to indicate their party preference. Simply vote for your top candidate in each race. The top 2 vote getters will advance to the general election. In order to vote, you must be registered to vote, and that needs to happen 29 days prior to the election, or you can do in-person registration up until 8 days if you go to the elections office. For more information on voting procedures, go to www.spokanecounty.org/elections. That's spokanecounty.org/elections. For questions or special concerns regarding casting your ballot, please contact the Spokane County Elections Office at 477-2320. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and City Cable 5, thank you to all of the candidates for their participation in this forum. In addition, thank you to our viewing audience for the willingness to learn more about these candidates and their issues. For additional viewing times, consult the City Cable listings on the city website, www.spokanecity.org. For additional ballot information, check the county website. Again, that is spokanecounty.org/elections. Candidates will have information posted there with pertinent contact information should you like to learn more. You can also learn more about the candidates at the League of Women Voters sponsored site. Go to www.vote411.org. You can also learn more about the League of Women Voters at www.lwvspokane.org. We hope that this forum has helped you in making an informed decision when you cast your ballot by Tuesday, August 5th. Thank you for joining us.